Hello, I'm Bob Harris. Welcome to Duraamen's educational series for industrial and decorative concrete flooring systems. On our radiant heat panel, we've poured our Duraamen 5500. We're now back the next day, roughly 20 hours later, and it is mandatory that you go ahead and run a 100 grit sanding screen over the surface. With self-leveling cements, what happens is sometimes you have a residual that floats to the surface and it leaves a slight layer of residual dust. And so what we're trying to do is get a little bit of a profile, a CSP, but more importantly, clean off that little bit of a residual powder. Once this is screened with our buffing machine right here, we'll go ahead and vacuum it. And on a large job, you may want to just do a very light solvent wipe. You don't want to put a lot of water on the floor, assuming you're going to be using a Duraamen coating system like an epoxy of some sort. So just be very cautious about putting water on the floor. So here's what we're going to demonstrate. We're going to sand this floor, get it ready and prepped, and then we're going to show you the application of a deso dye over the top of this to cancel out this kind of a medium gray to give it a real architectural decorative look with the use of a dye. Okay, we've just recently sanded our Duraamen 5500 self-leveling overlay cement. On the bottom of the machine, we had a 100 grit screen. So the harder this material gets, you may need to be a little bit more aggressive. In other words, if more time elapses prior to sanding. So an 80 grit screen would probably be ideal for sanding in these conditions. We did vacuum it. We took a clean microfiber pad dry and we got off all the residual dust. Now we're going to show you some basic coloring techniques using the deso dye. We're going to use rosy brown will be our color. Deso dye is packaged in these little jars, 8 ounces basically, which mixes into either 1 gallon of acetone or 1 gallon of water. For this demonstration, we're going to put it in a solution of water. So once we spray the material down, we're going to just massage it in with a microfiber pad. It's just that simple when you're doing a water-based solution. On a large job, it's a great idea to have several workers, not just working by yourself. So you would spray it on and simultaneously somebody would be working right by your side, massaging the material in with a microfiber pad. So it is always important to protect yourself, especially if it's in an acetone solution, proper OSHA-approved respirator, non-absorbent gloves. With that, we're going to go ahead and start to apply our deso dye. Once it's dry, just as another coloring option, we're going to dilute down some black deso dye to go over the top of the previously installed rosy brown, just to get some very unique coloring techniques. Okay, the rosy brown by itself is really a beautiful color over this Duraamen 5500. For the purpose of this video only, we're going to show you just how easy it is to apply a contrasting color to get some additional variegation or marbling. And so we've diluted down black deso dye is what we're going to be applying here. Once again, we'll just simply work it in with a microfiber pad. On our Param 5500, we're getting ready to apply Duraamen's A03, which is a water-based acrylic. The Deso dye has had about 3 hours of dry time. We do want at least 3 hours of dry time, considering that we use the Deso dye in a water-based solution. We don't want to trap any moisture. We want to make sure that that moisture is evaporated out, especially when it comes to putting sealers and or coatings down. Had we used the Deso dye in a solvent-based solution like acetone, for example, you can get on with the sealing aspects much sooner, say within 30 minutes, because there's no moisture that's flashing out. So there are multiple ways that you can apply the A03. What we're going to do is we're going to apply it with a pump-up sprayer, followed by a roll, and then we're going to follow up with a second dry roll. You do need to be careful about materials like this. They are very porous by nature, and so we have had some applicators complain about roller marks. A lot of it is technique, so you just need to have enough workers to help you put the material down. So what we're demonstrating here is we're spray applying A03, followed by rolling with a 3/8 snap roller, and then we'll immediately have a dry roller with no sealer on it to help get rid of any unwanted roller marks. Okay, so here's the example I was talking about. One person is rolling the material down, and then I'm following immediately behind he or she with a dry roller cover. And as you can see, it's really unifying the sealer. It's taking away any roller lines. Once you get, say 200 square feet, strip off this roller cover, put a brand new dry one on if you're doing a larger area. And when you do it like we're doing here, you are just simply not going to get roller marks. Okay, there we are. Our first application of A03 water-based acrylic. Looks great. Previously on our panels, we applied Duraamen's 803 water-based acrylic. Roughly 4 hours has transpired. We've given those panels sufficient dry time. Now we're going to demonstrate mixing Purdue E32, which is a 2-component water-based epoxy. So you can see we have part A and part B. It is a good idea to always, when you open up part A, especially if it's been sitting for any extended periods, go ahead and mix it. So you mix all the solids back into a solution here, because it does tend to settle, so that's a good idea. Part of this system is what's called an induction period. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our components. Here's our part A. which is 2 parts, to 1 part, part B. You can see the difference in the height of the materials. We're going to combine them in this clean bucket and mix part A and B for 3 minutes. And this is a very important factor with this system. After that 3 minutes mixing, the material needs to sit for an additional 30 minutes prior to using it, and we refer to that as an induction period. That helps all the components catalyze and fully react, and then you're ready to use. So once that induction period of 30 minutes has transpired, you now have roughly 60 minutes to go ahead and apply it. So that's a very large open window of opportunity to apply it. Just a word of caution, after that 60-minute time frame, you really want to dispose of the material. You shouldn't use it. It will stay liquid for pretty much indefinitely. So if you let it sit for 3 or 4 hours, it'll appear that it's still usable. In reality, it's not. So your window of opportunity is 60 minutes. For our panels or our application, we'll be using a 3/8 of an inch nap roller and rolling the material down. Okay, that's our part A, followed by our part B. So it is a good idea, use a stir stick or a plastic spatula or something to get all of the contents of the remaining resin out of the bucket to make sure we have a full 2-to-1 mixture. Our 30-minute induction time has elapsed since we first mixed our E32 water-based 2-component epoxy. So I still like to come in here and agitate it with a stir stick just to make sure it's uniformly mixed up and nice and thoroughly mixed. So we're simply going to dip and roll. And to recap on our radiant heat panel here, we poured Param 5500. And we used a couple of different colors of Deso water-based dye in this application. We then sealed it with AO3, which is the water-based acrylic sealer. Now 4 hours has elapsed and we have plenty of dry time on this. Now we're going to apply our E32 water-based epoxy. Now obviously the video is for demonstration purposes. I would always on a project put slip-on booties onto my shoes to make sure we keep this surface absolutely clean so we don't get any particulate that's rolled into the surface or into the sealer. If you can, it's not a bad idea to do an area that's 70 or 80 square feet roughly, and then always if you can, just give it a quick back roll during the installation. And the back roll is going to help reduce the chance for roller marks. It's just helping distribute the material and level the material more uniformly is the reason for back rolling. Our panels that we installed, E32 water-based epoxy, have dried now for approximately 5 to 6 hours. Now it's time to mix up our water-based polyurethane, which is U46. This is considered a gloss. It's a 4-to-1 mix ratio, meaning 4 parts A to 1 part B. You're going to go over the top of the E32. Now, if you have concerns about a high traffic area like a restaurant or coffee shop, somewhere where there's a lot of abrasion, you may need to consider the use of putting down 100% solids epoxy prior to this. So the process would be, at least on our panels, we would have went with AO2 water-based acrylic. That dried. Then we followed behind with E32, which is the 2-component water-based epoxy. Once that had the sufficient cure time in high traffic areas is when you would apply the 100% solids epoxy, and of course that would dry for a minimum of 10 to 12 hours or the following day, and then you would come back over the top of the 100% solids epoxy with your U46. Now the U46, as I mentioned, is a gloss. Duraamen does have a matte version of this, and it's U45, which is also a very attractive finish if you don't want to have that high gloss appearance. So we've already weighed out our 2 components. We've put our 4 parts A, you can see here, and our 1 part B, so it's already pre-calculated out. You can see the difference in the volumes of each. And what we're going to do is we're going to combine the two. We're going to dump the B part into our A, and we're going to mix for 3 minutes. Once we've mixed for 3 minutes, we are going to apply this product over the top of the E32 on our radiant heat panel and also on our Scrofino panel. Okay, on our radiant heat panel, the E32 has now dried for roughly 5 hours, and now we are getting ready to apply our U46 2-component polyurethane water-based sealer. This is gloss. We're using a 3/8 of an inch nap roller, and once this is complete, this will be the last step on this panel. All right, that's it. We just completed our back roll of the U46 2-component gloss polyurethane, and that's the last step on this panel, so then we'll call this one a wrap, and it looks really, really nice.